A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 52nd edition of the Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. Once again, it is my honor to welcome all of you to what has become India's largest thought sharing platform for school education. Week after week, we have been humbled and honored by your presence and support in these webinars. A few days back, Achin, our founder and CEO, was attending a roundtable organized by one of the largest business publications in the country. We were watching that webinar and we could not help but notice how enriched our conversations get thanks to all of your presence. And for that, we remain grateful. Today, we look at a very interesting topic, bagless schools. When we were talking about this topic before we sent it out to all of you, we were recounting our own school days, our experiences with our bags. When we started school, the bag was an ornamentation. We were competing on whose bag looked the stylish, whose bag looked the most attractive. This went on until about middle school, around which time, being a kid in the 90s, we were introduced to foreign movies. When Star Movies and HBO invaded our living rooms, along with it came movies of American schools. Suddenly, students were walking into the school, putting stuff into a locker, and then taking books out of the locker and walking into the class. Seemed interesting. A little later, as we migrated to classes 11 and 12, we started preparing for the competitive exams. Books like IIT Maths, IIT Chemistry, and IIT Physics provided us a great workout for our shoulders. And then, like any normal distribution curve, the curve seemed to dip as we moved to higher studies. Jokes apart, bags and the load of bags have taken a toll on quite a few students. At the same time, they have always, for us, represented a quintessential piece of our school lives. Today, we look at what bagless schools might look like. Before we move on, we at Notebook, our EdTech brand, we use short, crisp videos to help teachers and students with their studies. These videos can be used by teachers in online and offline classes, where they can play this video to introduce a topic to students better, help the students visualize. At the same time, students can use these videos on their personal devices to revise a topic before their exams. One of the pieces of this bagless schools concept is obviously the amount of education available digitally. And that is something we at Notebook do try to enable. Here's a short clip from one of the Notebook videos.
Hello students, welcome back to the second last part of our exclusive set of videos on forms of business organizations. Our today's topic is on a joint stock form of business. Now students, let me take a few names. Indian Oil Corporation Limited, State Bank of India, Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited, Tata Motors Limited. Guess what's common in these names? Yes, they are all premium joint stock companies in India. To define a company, it is an association of persons formed to carry out business activities and has an independent legal status. In India, the Companies Act 2013 governs the company form of organization. We will now visit the main features of a joint stock company. Artificial person. This is the most unique feature of a company where the company is exactly treated like a distinct individual. Such a company can borrow, incur debts, enter into contracts, sue and be sued, to name a few. Separate legal entity. Following the first feature, we can understand the second feature of a separate legal entity. After incorporation, the law recognizes the company as distinct from its members. Incorporation or formation. This is complicated, time-consuming, and expensive. Registration under the Companies Act 2013 is mandatory to kickstart operations here. Perpetual succession. A company is created by law, so can cease to exist only by law. Members can come and go, but the company continues till time perpetual. control. There is this body called the board of directors in any company, form of business. The members of this body are elected by the shareholders and they hold immense responsibility as they are directly answerable to the shareholders. The management and control of the company resides in the hands of the board of directors.
Was that, ladies and
Liability.
gentlemen, was a short
The
clip
liability.
of one of the 10,000 plus videos that are available on our website and mobile apps. We do hope that you would all find it useful when you're teaching your students. That done, it is now time to move on to our first speaker of the day. Our first speaker today is Mr. Philip Barrett. Barrett retired as the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. He served the Doon School as housemaster, head of department, dean of student welfare, dean of activities, deputy headmaster, second master, and acting headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. Mr. Barrett qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He's also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist. Sir, privileged to have you with us. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Shubayu. I won't ask you whether I'm audible. I presume I am.
Yes, sir, perfectly.
Okay. So thank you very much and a very good evening to you, Achin, Abhishek, the entire Notebook team, and also our esteemed panelists, as well as our guests who've tuned in. This is a very interesting topic. I will approach it from my personal perspective. So, when you talk about a school bag, what does a school bag contain? Well, it contains textbooks, exercise books, writing material, food for lunch, rollerblades, taekwondo kit, soccer shoes, and the entire paraphernalia that students cart around. Yes, this does seem a heavy burden, against which a lot of parents and medical bodies have been shouting and demanding that something be done to reduce this weight on a child's back. Research has shown that the weight that some junior students carry in these bags ranges between 6 and 12 kilos. And in senior school, it could get up to 18 kilos. And this could lead to some serious spinal and knee problems in young growing bodies. There's also the question of what students are hiding in bags. And if one is talking about the US, well, it could be anything from guns to knives and substances. And at the school I last worked in, bags were checked at the gate. And I discovered that, students are clever and they get smarter and smarter and they fool everyone. So no amount of checking could ever, it didn't help too much. And very often I discovered that entire bags were stolen by other students just before exams. An entire year's work was lost. And there was no way in my days that you could replicate those hours of note making, as there was no Xerox machines or scanning machines as we have nowadays. In fact, many schools in the metros, Bangalore especially, Karnataka is very strong, have experimented with bagless days. And some have even turned bagless to some extent. Students have welcomed it. Don't we all remember those days in school when the teacher announced that there would be no bags required the next day because the class was going for a visit to a museum or a picnic? And there was so much joy and cheering in class. I wonder if you remember those days, because bags were synonymous with studies, and that meant if there was no bags, there was no studies. And this, I think, is the crux of the problem. Most teachers and parents and students feel that only when we have bags with books and burdens do we learn and do we study, which is wrong. Now, in the pre-digital days, books, both exercise and text, were necessary. And I remember hauling quite a weight to school each day. In fact, as Shubayu said, I experimented with different types of bags, from duffel bags to small suitcases, briefcases to tote bags, and they were all equally heavy. And there was nothing you could do about this. Without books, we in those days could not learn, and we could not pass exams or do homework. But let me tell you, in defense of bags, let it be said that they had certain advantages. They taught us how to organize, check our timetables every night, and pack just what was required, not an extra gram. We also took care of our bags and learned to be responsible for them. If we lost our bags, we lost an entire year's work. Later on in life, I think this comes to good use because at railway stations, at airports, people tend to misplace laptops and bags, but the bag generation people won't. Just look around today and see how many of our generation Y kids lose cell phones, laptops, writing material. Bags were also a fashion statement. They were a status statement. They told everyone who you were. I think I spent a lot of time as a housemaster reading the graffiti on students' rucksacks, little bags. In our school, we made bags uniform because we didn't want rich students to carry expensive bags. So even though they carried a uniform bag, the graffiti was interesting because that was their personal statement, their rock groups, their personal slogans. Sometimes, slogans like a certain subject or a teacher sucks. So I learned a lot about a student by reading what was written on his bag. At the end of the day, a bagless school is only possible in a paperless school, a paperless setup. Now, in the first 20 years of my working life, there was paper everywhere. There was textbooks, books, question papers, files, circulars, vouchers, brochures, letters, notices, invoices, till my headmaster decided one day that all of us would go online to write our annual reports. I can tell you panic reigned all over the staff room, because we had to learn to use Word documents, save and format overnight. Special trainers were brought into school, and some of us were slow learners. And you can imagine the first set of reports that went out that year were full of mistakes. And many of us were still much more used to writing those long-term reports in triplicate using carbon papers. Okay, so there were some teething problems, but we mastered this art of using Microsoft Word with its subtitles and font sizes and margins and formatting, word checks, timetables and school calendars, which took weeks of doing and redoing and erasing, could now be done overnight on an Excel sheet. This cut and paste was a teacher's best friend. Now, gradually, teachers shifted from using the school desktop to owning their own laptops. Students demanded that they turn digital. And so we saw the advent of the personal learning, the research-based assignments, and visits to the library also dwindled because they use Kindles. Now, just as this strict headmaster brought about a change in our way of looking at things, I think this recent COVID-19 pandemic has been a catalyst and is going to usher in the era of the bagless school. We have seen how children in this country have taken to digital education, and we now see teachers, how well they've adapted to online teaching, assessment, and correction. Now, teachers and the way a student learns, the way a teacher teaches, depends upon the examination that the students are doing and being prepared for. If the exam requires repetition of what is taught, and if it's going to encourage reproduction of notes and diagrams from textbooks, or just a regurgitation of remembered facts like dates in history or the highest mountains in geography, then all that teachers would do is insist that students take down notes and learn from rote from their notebooks. And then students will just cram and copy. Yes, it is the school system and exam boards which encourages copying and rote learning. And as a matter of interest, most people in India, most children in India refer to the exercise book as a copy, which is obnoxious in my view, because what it means is that they simply copy, while the aim of education is to encourage children to be original, creative, and to use their initiative. No wonder we are excellent at copying, but not very good at inventing. I mean, I would like to ask how many patents the Indian IITs bring out annually when you compare it to engineering colleges like Georgia Tech, MIT, or Caltech. This is why so many progressive schools have shifted to the more research-based and creative international boards. These boards are encouraged and are designed for online digital learning and bagless schools. Now, if the world is moving to a paperless digital system, then why should our schools, which are supposed to be a training for life, not do likewise? While conceptually it is possible to have a bagless school and move completely digital, where every class has a laptop facility and teachers assign and correct homework, there still remains certain barriers and roadblocks. I asked the question, is it possible in all Indian schools? Can these schools bear the higher costs involved? Would this not aggravate the class disparity that exists in our country? What would this mean in terms of eye strain and radiation effects on the young brain with so much screen time? And of course, the resources required by a bagless school would be magnified. Smart classrooms, fully wired 24/7 connectivity, computers all over, Kindles in the library, a center for repairs of laptops. There would be misuse of digital empowerment, pornography, cyberbullying, etc. And are our teachers ready to work in a bagless, a bookless school? But before we go fully digital to a bagless, I must mention four things that could lead to a bagless school without much effort. One is that if a school system plans the day such that there are academic classes mixed with physical education, music, art, carpentry, metalwork, the vocational training, hands-on, such as suggested by the new education policy, this would limit the number of books the students carry to school each day. So straight away, you are reducing the bag load. The second way is this day boarding concept, where students complete all their homework before leaving school at 4 p.m. So they don't carry books home and to and fro. And this this day boarding concept suits parents who are both working, because they come back in the evening by 5 and the kids are back. The third is to have lockers in the classroom or in the corridors so that students leave books in school and do not have to carry unnecessary books up and down. And the last system is move to a system where there is less exercised books and go in for files. In some schools they have 2 books per subject. One is a homework book, one's a classwork book. In English, there's a literature book and a language book. Now we can minimize this by having files. And there's only one file, and you hand over a sheet to the teacher. She takes the sheet, she corrects it, you take the sheet home. Of course, this will involve much more Xeroxing work and much more handouts and online assessments. And so this way, students don't have to carry a load of books up and down. With that, I hope I have spoken of the pros and cons of a bagless school, and I look forward to hearing from the esteemed audience. Thank you very much for listening to me, and over to you, Shubhayu.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for raising very pertinent questions that we hope that the panel discussion today will answer. But before we go to the panel discussion, it is now time for me to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Achin Bhattacharya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. He is a fellow of the ICAI and a member of CPA Australia. He is also the recipient of the Indian Achievers Award. Achin is an avid reader and a passionate traveler with keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce, and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Shubhayu, I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, Achin, loud and clear.
I again welcome all of you to today's session on a topic which brings hope and optimism in this testing time. Childhood as we would all agree, needs to be a period which is free from all bindings. It is the most blissful and carefree period of one's life, where we mostly live in present without worrying too much about our past mistakes or future ambitions. As we are too fresh and innocent for carrying any baggages and are just learning to scribble in a clean slate. Today's topic is very broad and can be subjected to a wide range of interpretation. We can look at the literal meaning of the term, and there are various contemporary initiatives being taken both for bagless schools or at least bagless days. I think Bharat sir also made some very pertinent points, great points, good examples. However, if you look at the broader meaning of this very interesting topic, I guess, and take a more holistic approach, Nelson Mandela has famously said, education is the most powerful weapon to change the world. But how do we change things if we do not dare to dream? If we cannot imagine a better world? Picasso once said that all children are born artists. The problem is to remain an artist as we grow up. I believe this passionately, that we don't grow into creativity. If we don't grow into creativity, we grow out of it, or rather, we get educated out of it. So why is this? Our education system is based on an idea of academic ability. And there's a reason. Around the world, there were no public systems of education really before the 19th century. They all came into being to meet the needs of industrialization. In the next 30 years, when I say next 30 years from now, according to UNESCO, more people worldwide will be graduating than the total number of graduates since the beginning of history. More people, right? And it's the combination of everything that we discussed in so many of our sessions. Technology, transformational effect on work, demography, and huge explosion of population. Now suddenly, degrees aren't worth like good old times. Isn't that true? It's a process of academic inflation, if I may call it so. And it indicates the whole structure of education is shifting beneath our feet. We need to radically rethink our view of intelligence. With this background, let's relook at education. As I told you, if we take a more holistic view of the topic. Now, in our previous sessions on various topics, I had tried to give you my insights and findings about what's happening around the world. This time for a change, on a topic as sensitive as this, which I believe is very sensitive and very relevant. Let's really come home and take a closer look. We will discuss, to start with, I would like to deliberate a little bit on Shantiniketan, located about 158 kilometers northwest of Kolkata in Bengal's rural hinterland. Shantiniketan, as you all are aware, embodies Rabindranath Tagore's vision of a place of learning that is unfettered by religious and regional barriers. Established in 1863 with the aim of helping education go beyond the confines of classroom, Shantiniketan grew into Vishwabharati University in 1921, attracting some of the most creative minds in the country. From its very inception, Shantiniketan was lovingly modeled by Tagore on the principles of humanism, internationalism, and a sustainable environment. He developed a curriculum that was a unique blend of art, human values, and cultural interchange. Even today, in every step, in every brick, and in every tree at Shantiniketan, one can still feel his presence, his passion, his dedication, and his pride in the institution. You know, but how was this great idea conceptualized? What is the story behind it? In 1862, Maharishi Devendranath Tagore, father of Rabindranath, was taking a boat ride through Birbhum, the westernmost corner of Bengal, when he came across a landscape that struck him as the perfect place for meditation. He was really captivated by the beauty of chatim trees and palm groves that offered a shade in the red-colored terrain. He bought a large tract of land that charmed him. He built a small house and planted some saplings around it. At that time, this area was named after a local dacoit and was named as Bhuvandaga. But Tagore decided to call the place Shantiniketan, or abode of peace, because of the kind of serenity it brought to his soul. In 1863, he turned it into a spiritual center where people from all religions, caste, and creed came and participated in meditation. In the years that followed, Devendranath's son Rabindranath went on to become one of the most formidable literary forces India has ever produced. As one of the earliest educators to think in terms of global village, he envisioned an education that was deeply rooted in one's immediate surroundings, but connected to the cultures of the wider world. With this in mind, in 1901, Rabindranath established an experimental school at Shantiniketan with only 5 students. To begin with, he had only 5 students, including his own elder son, and an equal number of teachers. He originally named it Brahmacharya Ashram in the tradition of ancient forest hermitages called Tapubon. The guiding principle of this little school is best described in Tagore's own words. He once said, "The highest education is that which does not merely give us information, but makes our life in harmony with all existence." Located in the heart of nature, the school aimed to combine education with a sense of obligation towards the larger civic community. Blending the best of Western and traditional Eastern system of education. The curriculum revolves originally around nature, with classes being held in open air. So most classes are held under trees, held in open air. Tagore really wanted his students to feel free, despite being in formal learning environment of the school, because he himself had dropped out of school when he found it himself unable to think, and he felt claustrophobic within the 4 walls of a classroom. Thus, at Patha Bhavan, as the school was later on known, children sat on hand-woven mats beneath trees and were allowed to run around, climb those trees. Now, very recently, one of my colleagues, a team member at Notebook, who joined us, is from the same school. So I had a great interaction with her. I was trying to find out that how were the days spent at the school, how actual education happened. I was very curious. I was asking, are they in a brick and mortar classroom? Are all classes held under the trees? What I really found is a great experience. The kind of love children develop for creativity, for nature, for your surrounding. You truly blend with your surrounding. You're in harmony with your environment. That's the best part of it. So I got to know nature walks, excursions are a part of the curriculum. And students are encouraged to follow the life cycle of insects, birds, plants. And a lot of emphasis is given on vocational education, flexible class schedules, a lot of seasonal festivals, which were conceptualized by Tagore, being celebrated till date. Now, in an attempt to help with rural reconstruction, Tagore also sought to expand the school's relationship with the neighboring villages of the tribal community. And he really worked tirelessly for them. A lot of members of that community later on were educated from the school and are serving as teachers, and even in university itself as social workers. Now, Shantiniketan can be really credited with taking the first path, breaking steps in the field of education at a time. Now we are discussing about a time, about an era when the country was slowly getting hitched to the European mode of education, right? Textual, exam-oriented knowledges imparted in closed classrooms, which by and large is followed, right? Lord Macaulay's curriculum, his idea of education. But as a country, our tradition, our heritage, our Gurukul system, the concept of Shruti, I think Tagore can be really credited with regard to taking this first step. And other than a human and environment-friendly education system, he also aimed at overall development of the personality. Shantiniketan was offered as one of the earliest co-educational programs in South Asia. In the year 1913, as we are all aware, Tagore was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature for his book on poems called Gitanjali. The award enhanced the prestige of the school. It enhanced the prestige of Shantiniketan. And thus, few years later, in 1921, he converted the little school into a university called Vishwabharati. The university offers courses in humanities, social science, fine arts, music, performing arts, education, agricultural science, and rural reconstruction. Its art college, Kala Bhavan, is widely considered to be one of the best art colleges in the world. From around the world, people come in search of education and fine arts. And Tagore was one of the first to support and bring together forms of art, different forms of art at Shantiniketan. He invited artists and scholars from other parts of India and all over the world to live together on a daily basis and share their cultures with students. You know, he once wrote, and I really love these few lines, that without music and fine arts, a nation lacks its highest means of national self-expression, and the people remain inarticulate. So that was the importance of music and fine arts in the eyes of Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. The groundbreaking outlook is also the reason why Shantiniketan has given India so many luminaries like pioneer painters, Nandalal Bose, famous sculptor, Ramkinkar Baij, Nobel-winning economist Amartya Sen, globally renowned filmmaker Satyajit Ray, and the country's leading art historian R. Shivkumar. Also, so many international alumni, eminent international alumni, Indonesian painter Afandi, Italian Asianist Giuseppe Tucci, Chinese historian Tan Chung. The list is so long. Sri Lankan artist Harold Paris, among many others. Tagore himself produced some of his best literary works and sketches at Shantiniketan. Now, over the years, Shantiniketan has adapted to changing times. So I was discussing with my colleague and I was trying to find out what are the changes, how have things changed, how have things evolved. Things have changed, of course they have, but the essence of the place is still what Tagore wanted it to be. So I think when we discuss about the concept of bagless school, when we discuss about the concept of education as a learning journey outside the confines of classroom, this is one of the finest examples in the world where really our country, our nation has shown the way. And that too at a time when this was unthinkable. So that's the kind of vision. That's the kind of cultural thought leadership that this stands for. So I was also thinking that what are the changes in schooling system that we are looking at? How will schools change over the next 10 years? What are some of the pressing issues that educators are likely to face over the next decade? How will classrooms look? What will be the role of artificial intelligence? Over the next 10 years, as we all would agree, that there will be changes in workplace. So could we rethink schools in terms of social, cultural, cooperative, community-related outcomes? It must be really interesting to reimagine. And how the classrooms of future look when we discuss about backless schools. If we set our imagination free, how would the classrooms look? And classrooms definitely have changed over a period of time, right? So I'm sure we are going to have more smart classrooms based with latest technology, sensors. We may have completely different technology, smaller devices. We never imagined a smartphone 30 years back, and now look, they're everywhere, right? It's a part of our lives. We virtually carry our office and everything. Single touch point, starting from shopping of groceries to booking a cab to answering work-related mails. So I'm sure that the kind of changes, the winds of change that are blowing everywhere are going to affect our schools as well. But underneath the physical appearance, the guiding structure of classroom are likely to remain the same. I'm sure we'll still have a curriculum. We'll have an assessment. So there'll be similarities for sure. But still, when we look at it, we do understand and agree that there are loads of other spaces. You know, when we talk of backless classroom from a more holistic perspective, the way I look at it is that learning will not be confined to the four walls of classroom. There are a lot of other spaces where I think school-based learning will take place more and more. Kids are going to be learning more on the move. Mobile learning, literally on their way to school and back. Learning at home, library, learning in shopping malls and cafes. There are going to be spaces where schools will take place, even though you are not in school. Still, there will always be an ongoing need for school in the community, as we have always discussed and agreed. Because there are places where local communities can come together. Children will mix with other children. Get to know them. And those kind of things you can't do in a virtual school. You can't do in an online portal, right? So we are looking at a blended learning with more, with more space, more role for individual learning. So you have a physical school with kids sometimes doing online classes, and there will be virtual options as well. Also, I guess artificial intelligence will play a very, very big role, very important role as we go forward. And in 10 years' time, it will be far more prominent. It's no magic, right? It's just like maths. So using computers to look for patterns in masses of data, and then you can use that to make predictions and suggest courses of action. What they do through videos and the way they interact with the devices. Artificial intelligence might also be able to generate data on a learner's moods and emotions. So how do you do that? Unless until you collect those data, you start studying the behavioral pattern, you try to arrive at some trends, and then you extrapolate and you try to predict someone's behavior, right? But that really helps to provide customized learning experience. And there's a lot of interest in how we can infer emotion from facial recognition or other biometrics. And then you can use the data to make decisions, as I said. So but I think what is really important is to ensure that we use artificial intelligence as an aid to learning. So naturally, we need to ensure that all stakeholders take adequate interest, receive training in this to optimally utilize it. So I guess we discussed about some very important aspects. We discussed about bachelor schools from a more holistic perspective. We discussed about how we look forward to schooling in future, how classrooms will be with more use of technology, artificial intelligence. I guess another thing which is really important is it's really important to know how to work with the systems. So going forward, I'm sure there will be better technology, better systems, but we really don't want to end up working for the system, right? We want the system to work for us. So it's really important to know, it's really important to be flexible enough in terms of unlearning and relearning, ensuring that we are up to speed. See, basics of education cannot change. It will never change. But whatever comes in the form of technology is for our use. So we need to ensure that we are up to speed in terms of this. So I think these are some points that I wanted to discuss. Coming to school bags, I think Birds have made some very interesting points. Now, when we really think about the concept of bagless schools, I completely agree with him that a child has many things that he loves to keep in his bag. It's not just about notes or pencil or books. It's almost an extended self, an extended persona of his. Bags are direct reflection of his everyday preferred habits, his hobbies, and many things that ultimately develops a child's personality. It's a place where he hides his personal belongings, strange ideas, and builds his own internal small world. So I guess it's also a question of softer emotions. And I'm sure, emotion is something which is synonymous with human behavior and has been so from times immemorial. So with this, I look forward to hear from our esteemed panel for the day. And this is a very important and interesting topic. So I look forward to hear on their deliberations on this. I thank all of you for giving me a patient hearing. Over to you, Shubhaya.
Thank you so much, Sachin. Thank you for that wonderful exposition and that virtual trip to Shantiniketan that you offered. As people know that we are based in Kolkata and we are privileged to have Shantiniketan just about 1.5 hours for drive away. Thank you for that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now on to the bit that you've been waiting for, the panel discussion. We are privileged to have with us today 3 stalwart principals who would discuss this topic of bagless schools. We have with us Ms. Shivani Gupta, who is the principal of the Mayur School in Sri Ganganagar. She's had 25 years in school education and worked in some of the most prestigious schools in Delhi, including Bal Bharati Public School, G.D. Goenka Public School, Adarshila Vidyapith, Tagore International School, and Sri Venkateshwar International School. She's taught senior school chemistry for 15 years and is now, interestingly, teaching senior school English for the last 10 years after completing her MA in English and a course in creative writing. She's also a creative writer, an aspiring author, and a blogger, and her articles get published in various educational magazines. Ma'am, privileged to have you with us. We also have with us Sri Arogya Reddy Pedireddy. Sir has over 20 years of experience in education sector across India and the Middle East, and an exceptional knowledge of K-12 school curriculum, instruction, assessments, and parental instruction. He's been the principal of the Platinum Jubilee High School in Gadchiroli, Maharashtra, of the Aga Khan Educational Service in India. He's been the principal of the Little Star High School, Adilabad, also of the same education service. He's been the principal of the Diamond Jubilee High School, the principal of the Al Khor International School in Doha, Qatar, and is currently the principal of the Ambassador School in Sharjah, which means he's not too far away from the IPL action, and so privileged that he would leave that and be with us today. Thank you so much. We also have with us Ms. Namrata Sharma, who is the principal of the Delhi Public School in Mysore. She did her studies from Nainital and Dehradun and holds a BSc in Science, a B.Ed, and an MA in English. She has been the principal of the JSW Steel, JAV, and PU College in Torangallu, Bellary. She has been the principal of the Millennium School. She has been the principal of the Edify School Electronic City branch and is currently serving her seat in Mysore. Ma'am, privileged to have you with us. I would now stop my share and put on my camera so that we can all see each other. Namrata ma'am, Shivaji ma'am, if you could. Yes, I can see you, Shivani ma'am. Thank you so much. And I can see you, Namrata ma'am, as well. Thank you so much. Well, before we move on to the questions that I have for you, we've had a bit of discussion, mostly positive, people in favor of bagless schools. I would like to hear your initial thoughts about this topic. Shivani ma'am, if we may start with you.
Yeah, thank you, Shibayu. Good evening to all the eminent panelists and the audience. Now, overnight, we changed to bagless school, schoolless school, physical contactless school, examination-less school, and even textbook-less school. So it was an overnight thing, a paradigm shift which we took over, and we navigated it with a gusto that was unforeseen, right? But I would want to pull the discussion to the reality that India is. I would also want to tone down the topic from the extreme bagless school to bags weighing less school, because that appears a little more realistic. So my area of speech would be bags weighing less, right? Then I would want to, as I've said, pull the discussion to the realities of India, because I operate in a small city called Sri Ganganagar, which is in Rajasthan. I would want to raise more questions then and give answers, because to non-academicians or people operating outside school system in a vast country like India with variable demographics, probably every problem does not appear as complex as we, the people who understand the realities, find them to be. Had the solution been so simple, we would not have devoted so much of space, decades, and rules. In 2018, HRD ministry brought about this rule that students of classes 1 and 2 would have bags weighing 1.5 kgs, 3 to 5 probably 2 to 3 kgs, then 6 to 8 not more than 3 and 4 kgs, and up till class 10th, the bag should not weigh more than 5 kgs. And of course, 11th and 12th children just walk in with a register in hand. So that's an entirely different thing. So what I'm saying is that these figures might appear very laughable, but for once the joke is on the education system. NCERT has been tirelessly trying to reduce the number of pages in the textbooks. I'm placing my discussion in CBSE schools, because I've primarily operated in CBSE schools, which is the most widespread board in India. So yes, NCERT tried to reduce books. Certain publishers also came out with term books, books divided into half. Now, let me tell you, for me as an educator, I realized that paring down the curriculum is not an option much, because after a point, we can't reduce the curriculum. Otherwise, it would become hollow and it would not cater to the needs of the child, education, the world. So a basic curriculum is required to be taught. What NCERT did was it condensed it into textbook in its zeal to reduce the number of pages. Now, my questions that I raise are as Bharat sir said, knowledge. Now, there is such a fine line between what is education, what is knowledge, then what is intelligence, then what is information, and above everything, what is wisdom, which we are actually aspiring our children or the younger generation to develop, right? So these are one big set of questions that define our curriculum. What should be imparted as knowledge? And probably we've distilled to the finest of the curriculum that our country has to offer, considering the total number of school-going children, then children operating in small towns and big cities like Delhi Mumbai or Bangalore or Hyderabad. In small towns, really. Then another thing is government schools versus private schools. I would beg to pull the discussion into government schools because we can't act elitist. Let us be realistic. 47% of children study in private schools, but the rest, 53% children in various small towns, and even in those economically challenged areas of, I've operated in Delhi, so I would talk about Delhi. They subsist rather, and they study in government schools. So we cannot outright talk about internet or 100% smart classrooms and all children exclusively studying in front of screens. So bagless schools and bags weighing less. My reasons for pulling the discussion to bags weighing less is this, that we've got to be cognizant of the realities of our country, the number of children from the backgrounds that are, and there are some very first generation learners we are catering to. So textbooks. Now, when Bharat sir was talking about reading from the, not carrying any textbook and digitally learning, I felt a little squirmy because if I'm asked to read a novel on a Kindle or a physical copy, I might be very old school, but I like to read on a physical copy. Owning the book, annotating it, underlining it, highlighting it is something that we need to do. I would also want to draw your attention to the assessments that we took in the present times, and blatantly things were copied and pasted from Google. When we asked the students to fill in the Google forms for the assessments or to send their answer sheets as MS Word document, blatant copy pasting of the content, and me being into English, I could make it out very clearly. So yes, this is also another reality. Then another thing is talking about, as Bharat sir talked about, making files and probably children carrying just loose sheets and then they filing them up at home. So talking about this, it might work in classes 9th to 12th because there the children are mentally capable of connecting the dots. But what about primary and middle school children where a continuity is required? Sometimes the teacher in the classroom herself makes children refer to the past. Okay, go to page this that we've learned earlier and refer to it. And then, there's a constant back and forth happening. And that was also the reason why term books did not work. Because once you are through with term one book and if the child has left it at home and the parent and the teacher is wanting to refer to something, she's either going to ask the children to bring that book next day or she'll have to stall her teaching for the timing. So these are the many questions that bring us to the understanding how best to navigate this problem. So yes, of course, notebooks can be thinned. We could carry thinner notebooks rather than carrying blank pages. For the 6-month hence, children could carry very thin notebooks, say, which could get over in 1 month. Then my son's school did this. The notebooks were punched in the corner and they were very thin. So the notebook would get over in a month at best. And then the child would leave it at home and continue with the next notebook. And after one term, he would just thread it away. So there would be 4 thin notebooks threaded together. So at least that was the continuum in the notebooks. Because it's a very simplistic solution that rather than having 2 answer books for literature and language, they would be equally thin. आप एक बनाओगे तो उसको भारी बना दोगे. So the idea is to reduce the number of pages and not carry additional pages which you might use in the month of January right from April. Right. Another thing is talking about textbooks. NCERT itself suggests that the child may dismantle the textbook and carry just chapter wise. Whatever is happening, you carry that much. Staple those pages. This is what is a practical suggestion given by NCERT, which the parents can systematically apply. कि आप textbook को dismantle करके chapter wise staple करके बच्चे का नाम लिख के school भेजिए so that it's reduced. Another radical solution that I've also written in my blog and thought of many months back, I had done that, was to tweak the timetable. Now, why I'm telling it appears radical is it sounded radical to my own ears when I came to this idea, but it is workable if we want to. And the idea was rather than teaching 5 or 6 subjects in a day, The child learns social science, science, English, Hindi, third language, mathematics. So rather than teaching 5 subjects in a day, teach 3 subjects, one language, one mathematics, and one easier subject like a third language or a computer, a science subject or something like that. So the child, and this can be applied right from class 1, child has extended periods, for example 2 block periods put together with a break in between. So instead of carrying textbooks for 6 subjects, the child would be carrying textbooks for 3 subjects, and then probably 2 continuous days of this, and then for the next 2 days another combination like English, social sciences, and art and craft and other kind of things. So 2 days of one language, one technical subject, or one theoretical based subject and a mathematics of that kind. Now, people would say, no, every child should be studying every subject. Now, actually, is he studying? We are only teaching. The child doesn't cope up with so many subjects all in day. Let us be very realistic. जो भी homework मिला होता है, शाम को बच्चा वही कर रहा होता है. Every day, the child is not able to revise everything, what is taught. That will be something very idealistic and utopian. So what I'm saying is that if we teach 2 days, that extended period of teaching with a break. So block periods, 2 periods together with a break, probably teacher would be able to achieve as much. And the child will be bringing less number of books. Of course, having lockers in home, that sounds very elitist because we hardly have, tables and chairs to store things. We can't punish the child with a day boarding system just because the child need not carry textbooks. So the child is in the school right from 8 to 4 or 5. Child needs rest. We all need to lie down and have a siesta, have meals with the parents or mom or whoever is at home. So these ideas I mulled over for long, but I found them to be punishing to the child. Now we've got to pick up which is the better, lesser of the evil, but nonetheless, the focus has to be in reducing the bag weight rather than, finding out solutions which could trouble the child further. So I found day boarding not very, very appealing. And lockers and all are a reality, something that actually lies not with the principal, but with management and the school setup and the infrastructure and so on and so forth. So I'm aware I've raised more questions than answered, but my aim was to tell 150 odd people here that it's a very, very complex problem, not something that can be solved so easily. And different segments of school would have to look for different solutions because one solution fits all will not work. And here I rest my case. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Please don't go away though. We have more questions for you. And that is precisely what we aim to do. Raise more questions than we answer because the experienced educators out there have been doing a phenomenal job during the lockdown. It's just important that we raise the pertinent questions. Mr. Reddy, sir, if I may come to you next. Your initial thoughts about this idea. You are based in Sharjah. Would be interesting to know if there are policies in place already.
Well, Shubhayu, am I audible?
Yes, sir, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think Philip and Achin have set the stage, and Shivani ma'am has thrown a lot of questions. But my initial thoughts, I think, rather than going into the theory aspects of it, I would love to share my own experience, how we implemented the bookless, or rather burdenless schooling. Now, as Shubhayu read my profile, I worked in the remotest parts of India, Gadchiroli, which some of the Maharashtrians will know, one of the remote places known for Naxals and tribals. Similarly, Adilabad, which is the then Andhra Pradesh, now Telangana, is also a tribal belt. Then I moved to the metros and then to the international setup. My initial thoughts are like, I was very much attracted to Eshpal Committee's report of 1993. If some of you who have read the report greatly will remember that. The recommendation was very strong on learning without burden. Now, to give you the solid examples that we implemented as part of Aga Khan Education Services, we developed a program called Shishu Pehal Paddhati. This was in late 90s, where I was working in Gadchiroli, remotest part of Maharashtra. So Shishu Pehal Paddhati, the child would come to school only with the snack and the water bottle. There's no book. It was up to grade 2, we initiated it. Now there is a thematic curriculum which is developed by the school. And the curriculum will run through across all the subjects the same theme. Like for example, if you are learning about the environment, for example, take for instance about insects, birds or animals, whatever. So the kindergarten child will learn about more about the birds. Even the birds, again, land animals, aquatic animals, whatever, okay, you call it. Then they move from there, they go into the habitats, they learn about it. It is part of the EVS, you call it, whatever, okay. And when they come into the literacy, they speak more about the characteristics of those birds or the animals, and they write about it. And as part of their art and craft, they draw the habitats, they draw those feathers or the beaks of those birds and animals, for example. So that is how there is a lot of integration which took place, and we were successful in delivering it up to grade 2. This was implemented in Gadchiroli, in Adilabad, and even in Hyderabad. Okay, it was even till date, that is a trademark of Aga Khan Services. Now, the personal experience, it was very easy for me to implement in Gadchiroli, almost a snail walk in Adilabad, but found it very difficult in Hyderabad. Now, actually it should have been the other way around, okay? But I think the challenge for the leadership is always the parental support. And if I am a parent who is educated with in the brick and mortar or the 4 walls with a thick book, carrying heavy load of it, I wish that my child also studies the same, because I am more comfortable with that format rather than taking a risk. There is also risk of the failure, maybe, whatever you call it, psychologically. Okay, so for me, my experience was, it was tough for me to implement it in Hyderabad, where I had to have series of workshops for parents. Now, similar example I give you. When I moved to Qatar, we never had any book for ICT curriculum right from grade 1 to grade 9. We developed internal curriculum for ICT. We developed our own packages for it. And it was built with the help of the team, the faculty. And we tell you, till date, that school, though I left, but even during my tenure, for 3 consecutive years, we were the national winners in robotics, world robotics, as well as Alice Animations, which is conducted by the Animations Group, North Atlantic University of Qatar. So I think bookless curriculum is possible. Now, as Achin sir said, yes, it is quite difficult because we all come from that textbook culture. This is a term used by NCERT. Okay, I'm quoting NCERT, sorry for that. But the textbook culture is so predominant that it becomes more of a political playground for competing ideologies. Sorry to say, but that's the truth. Okay, and which we all experience being in schools. Each government comes and changes the part of the book. Okay, but I think as educationists, it is important for us that our curriculum should be based on concepts. And it should be universal concepts. Now, we all speak about problem solving rather than problem finding. Now, we looked at different scenarios that Philip sir said. Without any bag, yes, the burden is reduced. Use digital books, technology we can integrate. Yes, we reduce the reduce the burden of the bag. Use 2 or 3 sets of books, one for school, one for home. You can still do it. But I think the crux of the problem is looking at an integrated curriculum where if we position our student at the focus point, we all would achieve it. Now, many a time, so many people who come into my school across my career have been asking me, what is one most important thing in the school? They ask me always. And I always tell them, very simple, student. Then they repeat the question again. Sir, we asked, what is the most important thing? My second answer also is student. Then they said, they smile and they say, what is the important thing? I say, student. Yes. If every school can look at student and develop a participative education, I think we would be more fruitful than any normal school. And I also say that it is important for us that the schools develop their programs around the needs of children, not vice versa. But in most cases, we see that children having to meet the needs of the programs because the school has its own agenda. Now, I'm sure my radical thoughts or maybe my own thinking is not very useful for some of the leading publishers, including some of the managements who do have a lot of commercial attitude in school. But I think we all need to differentiate that. And the greatest job of leaders is to make this possible, that we need to teach purposefully, and we also need to ensure that learning is evidence-based. And we need to bring in contextual learning experiences. Very simple. If we connect with the child and his or her real life, I think we don't need books. We don't need the bags. Yes, there's a question which is posed on the chart as I was going through. How do children develop writing skill? Writing skill has nothing to do with the books. I can still provide a piece of paper when they come. Like I spoke about the birds. Yes, I can give them pieces of paper to write about the birds. They write it. They carry home. Yes, as ma'am said, or Philip sir said, they can have files at their own homes or even in the school. They can pile up. It's much easier. I think it is possible. Of course, as Achin sir said, yes. Now we need to look, which I am still to explore. Now AI, artificial intelligence, how can it help? Yes, that is something which I haven't tried, so I'm unable to comment, but I'm still a novice at artificial intelligence right now. I must admit that. So possibly, yes, maybe after a few years, definitely we will come into that phase where even artificial intelligence also would be integrated. And definitely every school will go bookless and bagless possibly. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. As far as being a novice in artificial intelligence is concerned, I think you're at par with the rest of the world.
Thank you.
Anybody who claims to know a lot about artificial intelligence is not being very honest about it.
Okay.
Namrata ma'am, if I may come to you next, your opening thoughts about a school going bagless.
Yeah, good evening to
Good
all
evening,
of you present here, all the panelists, all the viewers. And yes, but most of the things have already been said by Philip sir, Shivani ma'am, and Arogya sir. I do agree with Shivani ma'am. We cannot go entirely bagless. That is there. The weight needs to be reduced because we are in a country where lots of diverse cultures are there, diverse people are there. The economic strata, there's a lot of disparity there also, where people cannot afford everything. But yes, we can go bagless on certain days, and we can keep the books in the school. And yes, bagless days, we have been following it in our school on Saturdays, like once a week, twice a week. It does help because children go into experiential learning. You know, they learn by doing, they go for nature walks, they do projects, and more of collaborative learning happens on those days, along with the vocational teaching, right? So it is, and the teachers have a lot of flexibility where they can come with ideas which are out of the box. It really helps them. But on all the days, it is not possible because there are a lot of constraints that we all have in our school. You can say the infrastructure, the classroom. But yes, learning does happen outside the school more than it happens inside the four walls of the classrooms. We can have it with the bags also, and Shivani ma'am rightly said, the notebooks need to be the number of pages in the notebooks need to be reduced. We also have it. We have thin notebooks, term wise we can have it. And at the end, the children keep it at home. They don't bring it. Then we have lockers in the school. But yes, having said that, since we are going into digital right now, what we are doing. It's all digital. Children are learning at home. But like ma'am rightly pointed out, we know what is happening. We are having assessments also, but it is like copy paste and the child gets the marks, which doesn't help. Then I do agree with Philip sir also that one very important thing which a bag taught us was to be uh, what like more responsible. We have that ownership. Now, if we go into bagless, the children just walk into it. There is no sense of responsibility, whether they miss it or they lose it, and they just go back home. So that is what teachers, and of course, the teachers, it is flexible for the teachers. If you ask me, yes, teachers will be very happy because they are not confined to the set systems, what they've learned in their training. Okay, I go to the class, I open the book, I teach, I come out. They also will they also will think that, okay, I need, how do I make this lesson more clearer to the children? The children, we have diverse learner children in a class. Some are visual learners, some are kinesthetic learners, and some, they have to do it. They cannot do it without seeing the video. They'll not be able to grasp. So that freedom will be given to the children, to the teachers, where they will focus more on these aspects and more attention can be given to the children. So that is one thing which will really help the teachers in collaborative learning. But again, not on all the days. A few days we can have it, and then of course we cannot do away with the books also. And if you ask me, is it advantages for the students? Yes, it will be advantages for the students because they will learn at their pace. The ones who are slow will learn in a different manner. The teacher needs to frame that lesson in plan that lesson in such a way that the ones who are really slow can be given up an activity, or the peer group learning can happen. So it is there, but yes, there are a lot of constraints. I'd just like to say it, but if you ask me as an educator, we cannot go bagless on all the days. We cannot have bagless schools. Bags will be there because a lot of things the children will learn. And yes, the feel of books, like ma'am said, she's also a voracious reader. I'm also a voracious reader. The feel of paper, that ownership that, okay, we are reading from the book. That also helps a lot. And children, they have to get into the habit of reading. If they are not into the habit of reading, it is not going to help them. So if they do digital, again, that eye strain will be there, the stress levels will be there. But if they have a book, that responsibility, that ownership will be there. So I fully agree that yes, we have to, with the times, we have to change. We don't know what will happen. Maybe 10, 15 years down the line, all schools may be bagless and we'll change. We'll also adjust to that. But as of now, yes, we can go but a few days. The less weight schools, less weight bag is more appropriate than a bagless concept, if you ask me. So thank you for listening patiently, and I hope my views do help.
Thank you so much, ma'am. They definitely help. So we have three very interesting views on today's panel. Shivani ma'am is in favor of lighter bags, but not entirely bagless. Namrata ma'am is in favor of a few days of bagless or lighter bags. And I think Arogya Reddy sir is the one who's completely on board with the idea, saying education can become bagless if the curriculum is modified accordingly. Shivani ma'am, if I may come to you first, I am going to question a fundamental assumption in this bagless idea. Everybody here has agreed it's a great idea. My question is, I think Arogya sir made this distinction beautifully. He said, reduce the burden. And if I go back to my school days, the weight of the bag did not feature as the top three burdens I was dealing with. What's your take on this? Does reducing the weight of the bag actually reduce the burden on the student?
Now, before I answer this question, I would want to bring in an observation that even in my school on Saturdays, we have bagless schools, like we have activities planned and competitions scheduled. So the child hardly carries any book. Now, there is very interesting observation that in case the parents want to schedule some outing, some function, and they are very easy on making the child take leave. And the child doesn't want to take leave because he or she finds the school very interesting on a Saturday. So there is this contradiction between the younger generation and the older generation, जो कि आरोग्य सर ने भी बोला था कि एक thought है कि किताबें नहीं है तो पढ़ाई नहीं हो रही, right? So this is an observation that I've made, that on Saturdays I get the maximum requests for parents wanting their children to be on leave or on some pretext or the other, genuine bhi ho sakta hai. And sometimes I've also had children coming and telling me, ma'am, don't grant me leave. Please refuse this request. I don't want to be on leave and I don't want to accompany my parents for this social. I might as well come to school. So this is an observation that I've made for this Saturday activity thing. Now you have asked me, please repeat the question.
My question is, if I am talking about reducing the burden on a student, going bagless, is that
right?
The biggest burden?
I'm sorry. So my wording for this is, if I talk about my generation, I was packing a lot of stuff in my bag. And this discussion about parents not wanting their children in the present scenario to carry the books and all, once again, I will pull it down to government school. How many of government school students have you heard saying ki, or parents saying that the child is carrying too much of bag on his or her back? This is a very much private school discussion, elite school discussion. And I would not want to budge from this ground, that this arises from the fact that parents have tried to sanitize the path for the child to an extent of making it a chui mui. The child is not to carry any bag. The teacher is not to scold the child. The teacher is not to push the child into working hard. What if the child could not memorize the table of 19? What is it required for? He can always see it on the computer or calculate it. But there are certain norms and basics that need to be followed. They are time tested. They've stood the test of time and proved their worth. Right. So once again, this discussion, out of the hundreds of more pertinent and pressing conversations that need to be had for the school system, education in India, curriculum, availability and expanse and reach of education to the last child in the remotest corner of some village, these are probably more pertinent. I agree, the child should not be carrying that load of the bag on his back like a donkey. But many a times it arises because the child is carrying a very heavy pencil box, which is very smart, but probably somebody who designed did not think that Winnie the Pooh might look very good, but that metal and foam and magnet is increasing the weight. Simple pouch is probably more worthy. Then the parent is packing in it more stuff. So it's both ways. The schools have to give very clear timetables and instructions on how the periods will be allotted and what all content material the child has to carry. But sometimes parents are also overpacking for the sake of safety, कि कुछ छूट ना जाए. ये भी ले जाओ, वो भी ले जाओ, language की book भी ले जाओ, grammar की book भी ले जाओ, literature की book भी ले जाओ, math practice notebook and math classwork notebook. So sometimes the parents also pack a lot of stuff, but then this will only happen if the school is not following a clear-cut guideline and forwarding clear-cut instructions to the child and parent. Now, in the times of WhatsApp and the teachers forwarding the homework and everything which is happening, right, in many, many, many schools, all of this can be handled provided the school leadership puts its foot down, that if you've told the child that I'll be teaching grammar tomorrow, right? And the children have to bring those books, and probably a concentrated effort towards establishing the timetable and following it diligently is done, right? So Shubhayu, I hope I've answered your question, that how do you resolve this? What we did some 20 years back and what we are doing today. 20 years back, even if a teacher slapped the child, parent didn't come and kill her. So lots of things have changed in the past 20 years. So yeah, parents probably did not discuss bag weight to the extent that it has become, gained prominence these days, right? So once again, I would say a middle way, clear-cut instructions from the school, timetable guidelines, following it up with the teachers, random working is avoided, we can manage the school bag weight.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Namrata ma'am and Reddy sir, I will take a thread from what Shivani ma'am said, and I will kind of play the devil's advocate here and ask you a question. Both of you are free to take this. The question is, ma'am spoke about if the timetable is followed diligently and the student is told in advance about what topic will be taught. Now, we are living in a world of blended classrooms, or at least blended learning. Most of the students will have access to some amount of reading material, whether digital or analog, at their homes. And then the idea of a flipped classroom is when they arrive in class, the time spent with the teacher is spent more productively discussing that topic. Right? Where do you see this being a factor in perhaps a school going bagless?
Well, I can answer from my experience now. The way we handle these structured or so-called institutionalized timetable, whatever you call it, okay? The way we have been doing, or I have been doing, is at the beginning of the term, there is the complete scheme of work, which we call it in the school terminology as the curriculum, okay? The complete detailed curriculum for all the subjects is consolidated into whatever pages it comes in, okay? We give only the themes and the sub-themes related to it, and the month-wise breakup of it, which is shared with the parents, students, and staff. Of course, it's the staff who prepare it, but the copy of it goes. Right now, because of the digitalization, everything is soft, okay? And we also have the learning management system, okay? It goes. In the previous years where I worked in India, for example, Gadchiroli or Adilabad, it used to go as a Forsythlo-style paper. It was given. So the parent knew very well what is going to happen this month. And the student also knew about it. Now, that is the thematic curriculum of the term. Now, again, coming down to the month-wise, like I give from April to June, for example, then in the beginning of April, only for April goes a little detailed curriculum of the same, which is a connection from the term to the month or the unit, you call it, whatever. So the parent has exact, including the story that is going to come. For the kindergarten, for example, so we used to call it as a web curriculum, where we take the theme, as I said, again, going back to the surroundings, for example, what happens in literacy, English, what happens in numeracy, which is mathematics, what happens in EVS, what happens, now we have included even the STEM part of it. Okay, like for example, surroundings, going back to the same topic, we connected how a child can make a bird feeder, for example, or a nest of a bird, which is a STEM, more of a gross motor. Okay, so that is how in detail it goes to the parent, the child knows. So even if I don't give them a physical copy of the book or the textbook, whatever we call it, okay, the parent is very comfortable because he has everything on his plate already. And on a weekly basis, we have only 2 books, for example, kindergarten. Even in Sharjah right now, for the past 3 years, we have been delivering curriculum without textbooks in KG1, KG2, grade 1. We don't have textbooks for our students. And when we initiated it, of course, there was a lot of uproar from the parental side, but we started educating them. We had series of workshops. Even now we conduct every month before, though we share the curriculum, everything, we call them for a workshop and we explain to them what happens in English, how would it be taught, what are the different activities going to come, what is the objective behind it. Similarly for STEM, similarly for EVS, similarly for numeracy, you know. So I think parental partnership is critical for us. And when the school can build that partnership, that parent also is a contributor in the education of the child, we would be successful. If I think that only school is the only place where the knowledge is important, okay, or it's only the teacher who is the source of entire knowledge, I think I might fail. I don't know whether I answered, but that's the way I think we can do it.
No, sir, that really helped. But I will come back to you on the parents bit because I really want to explain that angle with you a little further. Namrata ma'am, anything from your side on?
As already said, we are also doing the same thing, giving it well in advance. But one thing which we've observed is children still, many parents also feel, and even children, they pack everything into the bag and bring it to the school. I don't know why they are worried. If they have a history class, even in the higher classes, they'll stuff the civics notebook also, the geography notebook also, and bring everything together. But yes, that is where the parental cooperation and support is needed, because uh, these days, at least not in our times, when we were there, we were very responsible. But these days, children are being spoon fed everything the parents will doing are doing, like Shivani ma'am just said. They don't have the time, they want everything to be done by the school. So what do? They don't even guide the child that, okay, beta, set your bag at night, see the timetable, put the books. The child goes home, throws the bag at home, and then the parents go out. Next day morning, the child picks it up and brings it. So that is where we have to, guide the parents or do some orientation for them. I know it's difficult with today's times, because parents these days are different. They feel that they've put the child in the school. Now it is the school's responsibility to take care of everything. Unfortunately, it's the reality which we need to accept, and we've seen it happening. Right. So we are doing everything, even like Sir said, we also have in kindergarten, we don't have books. We just give them worksheets, which are all spiral bound into a book, and they do it in the school. We don't even send it home. But the parents come twice a month, they see what is being done, and the children carry whatever is being taught in the school. They go home and say, tell the parents. So it is there. We are doing everything, but there has to be a way forward where parents also need to cooperate in today's times. And if we go bagless, like, parents won't agree fully. They'll say, no, how do we know what is being done? We have to send the books. So that is where, which is a little alarming these days. Maybe with times things will change. We are working on it. And of course, everyone is working towards reducing the burden of the child. Like ma'am said, it's burden. We never thought it a burden, but these days parents do think it's a burden because the child has to carry so much. But yes, the responsibility lies with the parents also, which they have to accept.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Reddy sir, if I may come back to you on the parents bit, you said something very interesting back there, that you found it easier to implement a fairly bagless curriculum in Gadchiroli, and I'm familiar with Gadchiroli. I know, I've been there from Nagpur, beautiful place, but yes, not the most happening metro city. And on the other side, people in Hyderabad were resisting. And when you say people, I'm guessing you mean more of parents, because, well, students, if my friends are there in school, I don't really care about the rest. Why do you think that was the case? And if you have some specific examples, that would be great.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I realized it only when I moved to Hyderabad, because otherwise it was easy for me. So I thought it could be easily implemented. Now, one reason we felt was that maybe, yes, in Gadchiroli or in Adilabad, we were handling more of first generation learners. So maybe the parent could be that he's happy with whatever the school does because there is no other option for him other than the school. Could be that. Okay. More importantly, I think our parent orientation sessions help the parents to understand what the school is going to do. At the same time, how different this school is from the rest of the schools. Okay, I mean, you know Gadchiroli, so I can even name the school. It's Platinum Jubilee High School, which is run by the Aga Khan Services. And as you all know, Aga Khan Development Network is one of the philanthropic organizations across the world. Number of schools they have, and very futuristic in their education and thinking. Okay, now, so when we implemented in those schools, it was easy. Now, when I moved to Hyderabad, it is, as you know, though not metropolitan, but yes, it is more of a metropolitan in nature. Okay, and then we do have educated parents. Okay, now it could also be that the father and mother do not have much time to spare for the child because of both might be working. So they need something to hold on where they can come back and check which page has happened in the textbook and immediately put the child onto it, read page 20, job is done. Very easy, instant. Okay. It could also be that I learned in a specific style and I felt comfortable in that line. I don't want to seek a change now because I'm going into the future of unknown or the fear of unknown. Okay. It could also be because rest of the schools were doing and why this particular school is experimenting it. So I think there are multiple reasons. This is what I guessed. Of course, I have never done any sort of a research or any analysis on that, but these are my initial thoughts on that. And I think those are based. Now, if you ask me the same question, where I am working right now, Sharjah, okay, when we started it, of course, we took it one class at a time. As I said, we are only in third year now of this new phase. So we started with the KG1, where we went bookless, and we had to run number of sessions. Okay. So the same set of parents understood when they moved to KG2 because they knew that, yes, it is effective. So it was easy for us to, walk on the straight road. Okay. Then they moved to grade 1. So it was much easier for us to convince them. Now, all on a sudden, even now, I think we are more of bookless, I would call it. But I would not say burdenless. Okay, because still the students carry either a laptop or a tab. So I wouldn't say bagless or burdenless. Okay, but bookless, I can say it now. But I think if we seriously look at it, as I said, for example, I can give you one example. Last year, we had this Innovators Week. Okay, part of the science curriculum. Every child has to find about any scientist or the innovator or any invention, and they have to come and speak about it, the person, the use of it, how it was invented, all that. You won't believe that we thought maybe, we can run it for maybe 2 to 3 days maximum because everybody might not participate. Very few might come in because it's more of a speaking and a lot of, research which they have to do. Some parents may help, some kids may not be able to do it. But we had to extend it for a week. Every child literally took part in it. And to that extent, then the suggestions came from the parents. Now you have done this innovators part of it. Why don't you create an innovation week within the school where the children come up with their own innovations, whatever they wish. We had to do it. And I think I shared with you also last time. Recently, when we were teaching about the machine tools, okay, the children came up with their own innovations using recyclable material. I think that is critical for us. So again, if we use the term textbook culture is not something important. The skill development and problem finding is more important than problem solving.
Thank you so much, sir. I go through this conflicting emotions every week. Part of me says I was born too far back in time. I would have really benefited from this education system with such advanced thoughts in education where it's so much experiential. And the other part of me says I'm glad I was born back then when my parents were not helicoptering around. So it's very conflicting for me. Yes, Shivani ma'am, you had something to say.
Now, this brings us to a very important question. As Sir said that he has been able to achieve a bookless school. And the question very obvious is, why do we need books? We need books because human beings, hardly out of millions, one might be blessed with a photographic memory like you can say Mike Ross in Suits, that I look at the text, I remember it forever and I can reproduce it. Right. So this also forces us that in pre-primary classes, when the content is very little, the focus is on skill building, we can go bookless. I still remember when I was doing MSc in biochemistry back in 94, and there were no textbooks of Indian authors on biochemistry. A, it was an applied field. B, it was a very new field in India. And there weren't any textbooks. So the library had some textbooks of foreign authors, and one of the book, let me not call them textbooks, they were books. So one of the books would have one chapter that is in my curriculum and the other book will have another content, and I ended up having a pile of photocopies that I had copied, right? Because probably that unit or that chapter in the textbook was linked to the previous one, so I was forced to print the previous one also. And there are dedicated shops around Delhi University and various other universities just catering to photocopying, highly illegal, but photocopying those foreign books, right? So what I'm saying is, then can we go bagless, bag weighing less, right from pre-primary to class 12? We cannot measure the entire spectrum of the school with one yardstick. Let us be very clear with that. Then we all know the curriculum moves from concrete to abstract. Up till class 5 or class 8, the curriculum is very concrete. The children need tangibles, even in content. They have to be shown an apple to understand, because language is very arbitrary. Why should an apple be called an apple, and might as well we go ahead and call a cherry an apple? We could have done that when language was getting formed. So what I'm saying is, we are moving from concrete to abstract. So of course, pre-primary more is skill building, fine motor skills, understanding of the world around. We can go back bookless. Then what about 1 to 5, when the concepts are concrete? Don't we need books and textbooks which are very tangible? Those tangibles are required to connect, to join the dots, to convert information into knowledge and understanding and comprehension. So those are required, right? Then we move slowly and gradually, we are becoming more abstract. And as I had begun with, 11th 12th में तो बच्चे एक register लेकर भी आ जाते हैं, note down करते हैं, और घर जाके they can recall, they can read from their own textbooks, and they can join the dots in their heads. But children of classes 3rd to 8th, I would want to find it very difficult if the teaching is done in this manner, because I recall I had a few teachers who were of so-called progressive mind. I found very difficult to understand what they were carrying out, what they were talking. I still remember in class 5 and 6, when she went from one topic to the other, and I'm not having a textbook, and she suddenly decides that today we are going to handle something else. And I was at a loss, being very intelligent, topper of my class. And then imagine what the child of average intelligence or below average would be struggling with, because usko dikhai dena chahiye samne कि हम ये पढ़ रहे हैं, ये कर रहे हैं. The mind just runs away if you don't focus it on those printed words at times. So one yardstick cannot be used. This is actually what my distillation of the discussion is. Another thing is, bags weighing less could be an achievable target. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I just have one more question, and I will come to Namrata ma'am with this. We have let her avoid questions for a while now. Ma'am, if I may ask you, from whatever I've gathered from the discussion so far, bags are essentially a manifestation of how much the curriculum weighs, right? How much are you going to burden the student with? When schools are talking about getting bagless, when the new education policy talks about bagless days, do you think it offers more flexibility to the teacher to experiment with different teaching methods?
Yes, it does. It does give more flexibility, because the teacher can come out like they are not into what they've learned, that this is how it is to be taught. They can experiment a lot. They can come out with new ways, like taking the child out, and that flexibility will be there. When they have the books, they know that I have to finish this in this manner. But when we leave the books aside, we tell them, okay, this concept needs to be taught. And earlier also, like I had mentioned, there are different learners in a class. So the teacher can experiment in different ways. She can do group activities. It can be collaborative learning. It can be a flipped classroom, or it can be peer group learning also, which is going to happen simultaneously in the class. So the teacher can experiment, and the children will also find it enjoyable, because there'll be a change. It'll be a change. They don't have to just open their books. Okay, ma'am is going to come, she's going to teach. They look forward to such things, that what is ma'am going to come up with, what new idea is she's going to bring to the class today. So that flexibility will be there, and teachers will also start thinking out of the box. Right now they feel okay, I have to finish, चलो ये curriculum है, इसको खत्म करना है और आगे बढ़ना है. लेकिन जब वो freedom उनको दे दी जाएगी, when they have the flexibility, they would also like to experiment, and children will also look forward to it. Right?
Wonderful, ma'am. I think it's great to hear that teachers would love that flexibility, because uh, as I'm sure all of you would agree, schools exist across a spectrum. And there would be one end of the spectrum where perhaps teachers would view this more as a burden, having to adapt to a new teaching style after having taught in a particular way for perhaps decades. Reddy sir, if I may come to you with this, because excuse me, you would have had to, tell teachers to change their styles in Hyderabad and in Sharjah. What was the reception like?
I think it was more positive, I would say, because they felt that they are being empowered. One is, yes, fortunately, I think the entire team that I work even today is passionate about teaching, and they are more progressive to learn new things. That's been a blessing all through my career. So I'm very thankful to God and to all my colleagues till date. The first. Second, I think because, as ma'am said, Namrata ma'am said, there is a lot of flexibility for the teacher. When we go with this sort of a curriculum, I think there is no binding rule that, yes, because the other class finished up to page 15, I also need to complete till page 15. There is no hurry or just to meet the requirement of the school. Weekly portion has to be completed, so I complete it, irrespective of the understanding of the students. So that way, I think teachers have found it more beneficial. Okay, parents also, yes, we do have those comparisons even till date, because, for example, my grade 1 has 9 sections. Okay, now they start comparing from A, B, C, D teacher, who is moving in which direction, where are they? But we give the liberty to the teacher. Okay, if you have completed only till that point, you assess them on whatever you want. So we don't centralize the whole evaluation pattern or the assessment pattern even within that particular grade. But the competencies are developed, and the levels of, or the skills or the competencies are also targeted. So every teacher knows that these are the targets that I need to achieve by the end of this lesson or by the end of this concept. But yes, as we say, it differs from teacher to teacher again. We give that flexibility. So they love that flexibility because they are not being pushed into that pipeline. That's the first thing. Second thing, if I answer Shivani ma'am, yes, I do agree. Yes, there should be more structure when we go into the higher grades. But look at the curriculum, IB curriculum, for example. Okay, even our own CBSE I curriculum, it was a success, but it was closed. That is a different scenario, political issues. That's a different. But CBSE I was successful. We produced the full length scale up to grade 12, one set. That means we run it for 12 years. We were successful in it without books again. Okay, so I think it is overall, yes, we cannot take everything on the same stride, because as you say, yes, we have a range of schools based on demography, based on socioeconomic conditions, based on access and accessibility. Yes, we do agree. But I think this is something where all of us, like leadership, if they think about it, rather than looking at curriculum development from NCERT where they sit in a corner and they write the book, they are nowhere involved with the students. If the regular teachers are involved in developing the curriculum and the textbook, I think the books would be more lighter, even in content and pages. Okay. And it would be more meaningful and purposeful.
Wonderful, sir. As you know, this is our 52nd edition, and my learning for 52 editions has been, if it has anything to do with education, leave it to the teachers. That's been my learning for these past so many months. Well, that's all the questions I had for you. I would just go around the table once now for your closing statements, whatever your final thoughts are after having been through this discussion. I'll go in the same order. Shivani ma'am, if I may start with you.
Yes, this brings me to an understanding, as Arogya sir said, what is the most important thing for him in school. Now, I would assume that a school would have the three pillars: students, teachers, and the infra, right? Then what is beyond that? And beyond that, I have also always, इनको तो given ही है, इनके बिना तो स्कूल ही नहीं है, ठीक है? तो इसके ऊपर तो कोई डिस्कशन ही नहीं है, बच्चा भी आना चाहिए, टीचर भी आना चाहिए और क्लासरूम इंफ्रा भी होना चाहिए. तो फिर क्या है? And I have been hammering on the idea, please increase teacher competency. We need not teachers who've chosen teaching as the last resort because they probably could not get anywhere else. And unfortunately, right now we have that set of teachers, even in the elitist schools of Delhi. A teacher should be coming in the school because she wanted to be a teacher. And a passionate, committed teacher would be innovative. She would be bringing in the change, and she would be actually making the burden of the bags lighter. Because मैं ये करती हूँ, my students, I used to tell them, अगर मैंने बताया कि ये पढ़ाऊंगी मैं, तो मैं यही पढ़ाऊंगी. Right? And that is why I would not want to leave 100% to the teachers, because at present they are carrying very limited vision. My teachers select the books at times from publishers, touching the pages. It is very smooth and thick and nice, ma'am. And then I carry the textbook in my hand and tell them, teacher, dear teacher, do you see the weight of the textbook? She found the page nice and thick and smooth, and the pictures very colorful. That was the criteria she selected the book for. So I do sit with such teachers as well. We need to make better crop of teachers, and that's another area of discussion probably, right? So I would want to take this with a lot of pinch of salt, leave everything to the teachers. No. It takes 25 years to be able to build up a rounded understanding that bags cannot be lightened, even though we may bang our heads so easily. They cannot be lightened so easily. There is no linear solution to things in education. But I still remember when I was fresh out of B.Ed and M.Ed, I thought I would solve every problem of the schools. I could, because I had those ideas. But 25 years has tempered me to the realities. So I would not want to leave. Educators, teachers, child psychologists, social, thinkers, all of them are required. Education is very, very complex. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Glad you gave us that list, because that pretty much sums up the list of people who have attended Together for Education so far. So I guess we're on the right track. Reddy sir, if I may come to you next. Your closing sequence.
Yes, I think I spoke elaborately on different things, but I would only say, as educators and teachers and parents as well, I would advise people to read, US President Abraham Lincoln's letter to the teacher, which is a famous one. That is the crux of all education. I think if we get into that, then every school will find umpteen ideas to solve the issues that are coming every day in the school, including the leadership, including me. Okay. The other one also is the next, I think the future challenge, as I said, one is technology, which is on a fast, rapid growth. At the same time, I think this pandemic has pushed us almost a decade ahead, even in education. That's the way I consider it. So AI is going to take lead. And on the other side, this pandemic also has thrown another challenge to schools. It's going to be, forget about bagless education. It's going to be schoolless education now. Okay. Which is more of a homeschooling is the concept which is coming in the primary years. So I think that's another challenge which we are going to face. And I recently read that book called as Education Without Schools by Helen Lee. Okay, it's a doctoral thesis, very, thought-provoking idea she has, what the future would be like in schools. Yes, I think we should be prepared. So we should be prepared for bookless schools, bagless schools, and education without schools. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. While education without schools might be possible, we also came across this line, I think, right at the beginning of this series. I remember one of the teachers said, schools might be closed, schooling isn't. So I think we'll go along with that.
Yes.
Namrata ma'am, if I may come to you, you get to have the last word.
Yeah, we've rightly summed it up. If you ask me, yes, we cannot go bagless at any point of time. Less bags, less weight, yes. But one thing we need to understand that we don't have to finish the book cover to cover. That is what is going on these days. You know, from one page to the last page, we need to focus on the concepts. And if we go as per the concepts, the weight can be reduced, yes. But if we say today also we are bagless, we are all digital, but what are the parents doing? You know, they still want the child to write. They send us the notes through WhatsApp that, ma'am, the child will write the notes, otherwise my child will forget to write. And that touch, you know, that teacher's touch, that personal touch, which is missing. So I don't think so we'll go schoolless, like so was saying, homeschooling will be there. That is, I don't think so. If you ask the counselors and all, nobody, psychologists, they'll not suggest, because the children are missing out on that. Even today, when we speak to the children, they'll say, oh, ma'am, when will the schools reopen? We want to come back. We are missing you. So yes, it is going to be digitalized. Lots of things will be there, maybe computers and all, but bagless, no, I don't think so. We'll go into it. But yes, concepts will be there and we need to focus on that. So this is my take, that after hearing everyone and listening to such eminent panelists and to Achit sir, Philip sir and all, I feel that yes, we need to work on it, but we cannot go bagless. The weight has to be reduced, but bagless, no. But yes, teachers will get more flexibility, and we need to focus on the concepts, how we can take it, teach it in a way where the burden is reduced on the children. So thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Shivani, ma'am. All three of you. Thank you so much for that very, very enriching discussion. I think everybody who's stayed on, I think they have had a fantastic time listening to all three of you.
Yeah.
It is now time for me to hand this back to Achin for the vote of thanks. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting you. Achin, over to you.
I think, Shivai, we really had a great discussion. Very informative. Bharat sir, as always, shared some really interesting insights about the topic, especially from his years of experience, which added a lot of value. Shivani ma'am, Namrata ma'am, and Arogya Reddy sir, I couldn't thank you enough for this enriching discussion. Very, very enriching. You know, the best part of the discussion that I really, really enjoyed, I really liked, that it really shows that with your years of experience, how you look at things, from bagless to bookless. I think very, very practical and very nicely and aptly put. Knowing from you about earlier committee reports that were published, Yashpal committee, I think very relevant. And also very happy with the way this entire discussion went, especially with regard to your experience. Arogya Reddy sir, if I may come to you, with regard to your experience of teaching in different parts of India, especially rural hinterland, you know, aspirational places, districts, and the kind of response you got and how you compared vis-a-vis what you saw in Hyderabad. I think that was very, very enriching. Again, Shivani ma'am also, I really like your practical perspective with regard to, you know, I think that's a journey that all of us as professionals, honestly speaking, we travel. When we start our careers, we start from a point of idealism. And then as we go along in our journey, somewhere we make peace with realism. It's not that we compromise on our ideals. It's not that we always compromise on our values and virtues. But in the process, we also learn that there are some practical issues that we always need to take into account, take into consideration while taking decisions, while And while it's great to dream, because unless until you dream, you challenge the status quo, things will never change. But it's always important, it's also important, equally important, I guess, to always remember the fact that we are not working on a greenfield project. We are trying to change tires in a running bus. So we really can't hamper the day-to-day operations, right? And within that, still we try to make change, we try to make things better. And I guess that's tremendous. That's wonderful. Sim, Namrata ma'am, some great insights you shared, which I really appreciate. I really like. I think very, very enriching discussion we had. And I'm sure our esteemed educators, our audience, those who are with us today evening, I'm sure they have taken notes and some excellent takeaways which will help. And this has been the entire objective of this Together for Education series, to share with each other our experiences. We all learn from each other. The entire objective of this forum is to learn from you and to ensure that we exchange views and we get to know from each other. It's really great. And I look forward to see all of you in our next session. Thank you again. Thank you so much for being with us today evening. Take care and goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Thank you, Achin, and all the rest of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.